The gleaming ships of the Astraea Confederation darkened Titan's orange sky as they descended toward New Providence Colony. Their smooth, crystalline hulls seemed almost comical next to the rugged industrial sprawl of the mining settlement. Governor Sarah Chen watched from her office window as the alien vessels navigated through the methane storms with impossible grace, a stark contrast to the utilitarian shuttles and cargo haulers that usually populated Titan's skies. "They must be truly desperate to come here," she muttered, adjusting the environment suit she never quite got used to wearing. After 15 years on Titan, the constant pressure and artificially regulated atmosphere still felt foreign. The Astraea were known throughout explored space as masters of stellar engineering, capable of building artificial suns and reshaping planets at will. Their civilization had spread across thousands of systems, each more magnificent than the last. Yet here they were, approaching a human mining colony on the outskirts of Sol system, far from any major population center. Dr. Marcus Reeves, the colony's chief engineer, stood beside her, his weathered face reflecting the orange glow of Titan's atmosphere. The message said they've tried everything else, every advanced solution their science could devise. And now they're turning to the experts in brute force solutions, Sarah said with a hint of pride. New Providence wasn't pretty, but it got results. The colony had survived and thrived in one of the solar system's most hostile environments, through determination and ingenuity. The colony's central meeting hall, normally reserved for shift changes and safety briefings, had been hastily converted for the diplomatic reception. Industrial lighting cast harsh shadows across the metal walls, and the constant hum of environmental systems provided an ever-present backdrop. Sarah had considered apologizing for the modest accommodations, but decided against it. This was who they were. When the Astraean delegation entered, the contrast was almost painful. Their environmental suits were seamless, elegant things that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Ambassador Lysandra moved with fluid grace despite Titan's gravity, her crystalline features catching the light in mesmerizing ways. Governor Chen, the ambassador's translator, rendered her musical language into crisp English. "We appreciate your willingness to meet with us on such short notice." Sarah nodded, gesturing to the utilitarian seats arranged around a heavy metal table. "We understand the situation is urgent. Please, tell us how we can help." The story Lysandra told over the next hour seemed almost impossible. The Astraea had encountered something they called a cosmic anomaly, a region of space where their advanced technology simply stopped working. No explanation, no warning. Ships entered and their systems went dark. Colonies within the affected zone found their environmental systems failing. The anomaly was spreading, and none of their sophisticated solutions had even slowed it down. "We've lost contact with 37 worlds," Lysandra said, her crystalline features dimming with grief. "Our most advanced ships, our finest minds, all our attempts to understand or contain this phenomenon have failed. And now it approaches the heart of our civilization." Marcus leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "And you think we can help because you survived without relying on advanced technology," Lysandra finished. "Your colony here, it would continue functioning even if all but your most basic systems failed. We've studied your methods. They're primitive by our standards, but robust, adaptable." Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. New Providence's techniques were developed through necessity. Mining methane ice and other resources from Titan's hostile surface required equipment that could be repaired with basic tools, backup systems that could be jury-rigged from spare parts, and solutions that didn't depend on complex computer systems that could be corrupted by radiation or extreme conditions. "We're not miracle workers," Sarah said carefully. "We're miners and engineers who've learned to make do with what we have." Lysandra's features shifted in what Sarah interpreted as a smile. "That's exactly what we need. The ability to make do may be what saves our people." As if to emphasize the urgency of their situation, one of Lysandra's aides projected a hologram showing the spread of the anomaly. Watching the visualization, Sarah was reminded of watching cancer cells multiply in old medical texts. The affected region was growing exponentially. "How long?" she asked. "At current rates of expansion, the anomaly will reach our core worlds in less than 6 months. We're evacuating who we can, but we have billions of citizens, and our evacuation ships are among the most technologically sophisticated vessels we possess. If they fail within the anomaly..." Sarah stood, walking to the window. The methane storms were intensifying, reducing visibility to a few hundred meters. New Providence's weather shelters would be activating soon. They're simple but effective systems protecting vital equipment from the worst of Titan's weather. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the most reliable. "We'll help," she said finally. "But you need to understand how we work. No complex solutions. No miraculous technology. We solve problems with sweat, basic physics, and backup plans for our backup plans." The relief in Lysandra's voice was palpable. "Thank you, Governor. We are prepared to provide whatever resources you require." Sarah turned back to the room, her expression determined. "Then let's get to work. Marcus, I want you to gather every engineer whose jury rigged a solution to keep their equipment running during a storm. Dr. John, we'll need your expertise on minimal life support systems. And someone get me avatars. If anyone knows how to keep things running with duct tape and spare parts, it's her." As her staff dispersed to carry out her orders, Sarah found herself staring at the hologram of the spreading anomaly. The Astraea had built their civilization on the assumption that their technology would always work, always advance. New Providence was built on the assumption that everything could and would fail at the worst possible moment. Sometimes the best qualified people for a job weren't the most advanced. They were the ones who knew how to survive when everything went wrong. Eva Torres stood in the cargo hold of an Astrian rescue vessel, her boots magnetic locked to the deck, surrounded by the most advanced technology humanity had ever encountered. And she was about to tear it all apart. "You want to do what?" Ambassador Lysandra's translator struggled to maintain its usual smooth tones. "Strip it down to the bare minimum," Eva explained, running her calloused hand along the ship's crystalline wall. "No neural interfaces, no quantum computation, no self-repairing systems. Just basic propulsion, life support, and manual controls." The Astrian engineers in the room looked physically pained. Their rescue fleet, designed to evacuate millions from the path of the anomaly, represented centuries of technological advancement. Each ship was practically alive, able to think and adapt and heal itself. And this human wanted to lobotomize them. The more complex the system, the more points of failure. Marcus Reeves added from where he was studying the ship's schematics. "We need these ships to be stupid, reliable, like the cargo haulers we used during Titan's worst storms." Governor Chen had assigned Ava's team to tackle the most immediate problem: how to make the evacuation ships anomaly-proof. The Astraea had already lost 3 rescue fleets to the phenomenon, their sophisticated systems going dark the moment they entered the affected zone. "Watch this," Ava said, pulling a battered tablet from her pocket. She brought up footage from a mining operation during one of Titan's methane hurricanes. The video showed massive haulers pushing through orange clouds so thick they were nearly solid, their systems reduced to the bare minimum needed for operation. "See how we handle complete sensor blackout. Pure dead reckoning navigation, mechanical backup systems, and pilots who know how to fly blind when they have to. That's what these rescue ships need to be able to do." The next few days were a flurry of activity as human and Astrian engineers worked to modify the first test ship. The Astraea struggled to understand the humans' insistence on mechanical backups and manual overrides, but they couldn't argue with the logic. Their own sophisticated solutions had failed completely in the anomaly zone. Ava spent hours in the ship's engineering spaces, teaching the Astrian technicians how to bypass neural interfaces in favor of physical controls. Marcus developed a simplified propulsion system that could be operated without computer assistance. Dr. Zhang from New Providence's Life Support Division showed them how to create redundant atmospheric systems using basic chemical processes rather than molecular reconstructors. It's like teaching concert pianists to play with boxing gloves on, Ava commented during a break, sharing coffee with Marcus in the colony's canteen. They're brilliant, but they've never had to think about doing things the hard way. Marcus nodded, his eyes tired but determined. They built their civilization on always having the right tool for the job. We built ours on making do with whatever we had. The test flight was scheduled for 3 days later. The modified ship, stripped of its more advanced features, looked almost primitive compared to its sisters in the rescue fleet. Ambassador Lysandra insisted on being part of the test crew, along with Ava and 2 Astrian pilots. As they approached the edge of the anomaly zone, tension filled the bridge. The Astrian pilots were visibly uncomfortable with the manual controls, their hands unused to physical interfaces after years of neural linking. "Remember your training," Ava said from her position at the engineering station. "When the systems go dark, trust your instruments. The basic ones we installed will keep working." The ship crossed the boundary. Immediately, the sophisticated sensors and quantum communications went dead. The Austrian pilots stiffened, but their hands remained steady on the controls. The stripped-down systems continued functioning exactly as designed. "Engineering reports all systems nominal," Ava announced, checking her gauges. "Backup life support engaging automatically. We're doing it. We're actually doing it." They pushed deeper into the anomaly zone, maintaining contact through old-fashioned radio. The ship's simplified systems, based on technology that would have been familiar to engineers a century ago, performed flawlessly. After 4 hours of testing, including simulated emergency procedures, they turned back. When they landed at New Providence, the celebration was subdued but heartfelt. The Astraea had never imagined their salvation would come from deliberately downgrading their technology, but the results were undeniable. "How long to modify the rest of the rescue fleet?" Lysandra asked during the debriefing. Sarah checked her tablet. "With both human and Astraean engineering teams working around the clock, we can have the first wave ready in 2 weeks. But that's just the beginning. We need to teach your people how to operate these simplified systems, how to troubleshoot problems without neural links, how to think like humans who are used to everything going wrong." "We'll learn," Lysandra said firmly. "We have to." As the meeting concluded, Ava found herself looking at the modified rescue ship through the window. It was no longer beautiful by Austrian standards, its crystalline perfection marred by obvious mechanical controls and backup systems. But it was functional, reliable. The kind of ship that could save lives when everything else failed. "Sometimes," she murmured, "the best solution is the simplest one." Behind her, she could hear the sounds of more Austrian ships landing, ready to be modified. The real work was just beginning. They had to teach one of the most advanced civilizations in known space how to take steps backward in order to move forward. The sound of shattering crystal echoed through New Providence's engineering bay. An Austrian technician had just thrown a neural interface against the wall in frustration, their normally composed features twisted with anger and fear. 3,000 years of technological progress, and you want us to abandon it all. The technician's translator rendered their musical language into harsh, clipped tones. "Our people are dying while we play with primitive machinery." Marcus Reeves kept his voice steady, though his hands clenched at his sides. "Your advanced technology doesn't work in the anomaly zone. We've proven that. These primitive solutions are your people's best chance at survival." The argument had been brewing for weeks, as the anomaly continued its inexorable expansion, consuming more Austrian worlds. The pressure to evacuate their civilization mounted. The modified rescue ships were working, but the process of converting them and training crews was painstakingly slow by Austrian standards. Governor Chen found Ambassador Lysandra in the observation dome, watching Titan's methane storms rage across the orange sky. The ambassador's crystalline form seemed dimmer than usual, worn down by weeks of constant crisis management. "Your people are at their breaking point," Sarah said quietly, standing beside her. And frankly, so are mine. Lysandra's features shifted, and what Sarah had learned was an expression of deep worry. We're not used to feeling helpless. The Astraea have always solved our problems through technological advancement. Moving backward, it goes against everything we believe in. Sometimes you have to go backward to find the right path forward, Sarah replied. My great-grandmother used to tell me stories about camping in the wilderness. Said you never really understand something until you strip away all the complications and see what's underneath. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call. Another Astraean colony had gone dark, lost to the expanding anomaly. 40 million people would need immediate evacuation, but only a fraction of the rescue fleet had been modified to operate in the affected zone. The crisis meeting that followed was heated. The Astraean delegation wanted to send in their unmodified ships, arguing that they couldn't wait for the slow process of retrofitting and training. The humans insisted this would only result in more lost ships and lives. You don't understand. An Astraean admiral slammed their hand on the table. Every minute we waste, more of our people die. Our worlds are going dark. Our children are suffering. Avatoris, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. Then show them how to survive in the dark. All eyes turned to her. She activated a holographic display, showing footage from New Providence's early days. When we first settled Titan, we lost power to the entire colony during a methane storm. No technology, no advanced systems. Just people working together, using basic tools and knowledge passed down through generations. The footage showed colonists working by chemical lamplight, using manual air pumps to maintain pressure, sharing limited resources, and keeping each other alive through the crisis. Your people aren't helpless without their technology, Ava continued, but they need to learn how to be self-reliant. We can teach them that, if you'll let us. A heavy silence fell over the room. The Astraean admiral's features had softened, watching the footage of human resilience with new understanding. Ambassador Lysandra spoke first. What do you propose? Sarah stepped forward. We modify as many rescue ships as we can, yes, but we also start teaching your people survival skills. How to maintain life support manually. How to navigate without computers. How to repair basic systems with limited tools. Give them the knowledge they need to survive, even if everything else fails. A return to fundamentals, Marcus added. Not because primitive is better, but because it's more resilient. Your technology is incredible, but right now your people need reliability more than they need perfection. The next few days saw a transformation in New Providence. The colony became not just a modification center for rescue ships, but a survival school for Astraean crews. Humans taught them how to read analog gauges, repair mechanical systems, and make decisions without AI assistance. More importantly, they taught them how to think differently, how to see problems not as opportunities for technological solutions, but as challenges to be met with whatever tools were available. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a training exercise, an Astraean engineer modified one of the manual air pumps, incorporating crystalline technology in a way that made it more efficient while keeping it simple enough to work in the anomaly zone. It wasn't as advanced as their usual technology, but it was better than the purely mechanical system. See, Ava said, examining the hybrid device with approval. You don't have to abandon everything you know. You just have to learn when to use it and when to fall back on basics. The modified pump became a symbol of what they could achieve together. The Astraea began approaching their other challenges with the same mindset, finding ways to preserve the most crucial aspects of their technology, while making it resilient enough to function without its more sophisticated components. As Sarah watched humans and Astraea working side by side in the engineering bay, she was reminded of something her father used to say. True wisdom isn't about knowing the most advanced solution. It's about knowing which solution is right for the problem at hand. The anomaly was still spreading, still threatening the heart of Astraean civilization. But now they had a chance, not because they had found a way to defeat it, but because they had found a way to survive it. But Maya was already pulling up geological surveys of major Astrian worlds on her tablet. Your people live in crystal spires that reach into the clouds. Beautiful, but vulnerable. We survive here by working with Titan's harsh environment, not fighting it. Sometimes that means going deep. The concept rapidly gained traction. New Providence's miners had generations of experience creating sustainable underground habitats. Their techniques for maintaining atmospheric pressure, managing resources, and establishing self-sufficient communities beneath the surface could be adapted for Astrian worlds. Governor Chen called an emergency meeting with Ambassador Lysandra and the colony's senior mining engineers. The conference room's walls were covered with geological data and tunnel schematics as Maya presented her plan. Most of your worlds have stable bedrock layers deep enough to shield from the anomaly's effects, she explained. We've detected that the phenomenon weakens with depth. Your own readings confirm this. If we can establish underground shelters using our mining techniques, your people would have safe havens until the anomaly passes. The Astrian ambassador studied the plans with intense focus. The scale of excavation required would be enormous. That's where your technology comes in, Marcus added, joining Maya at the display. We have the expertise in underground construction and life support. You have the tools to do it faster than we ever could. It's time to combine our strengths. The next few weeks saw an unprecedented collaboration. Astrian crystal cutting technology, modified to work with minimal computational support, was integrated with human mining techniques. The results were extraordinary. What would have taken human miners years to excavate could now be accomplished in weeks. The first test site was established on an Astrian colony world teetering on the edge of the anomaly zone. Maya led the operation personally, working alongside Astrian engineers to create vast underground chambers capable of housing thousands. They used New Providence's proven methods for air circulation, water purification, and waste management, enhanced by simplified versions of Astrian technology. It's not about surviving, Maya told her crews as they worked. It's about thriving. We're not just digging holes, we're building communities. The human influence was evident in every aspect of the design. Emergency backup systems were mechanical rather than neural. Power distribution relied on redundant networks that could be manually controlled. Food production areas were modeled after New Providence's underground hydroponic farms. But the Astraea added their own touches. Crystal formations were carefully cultivated to provide natural light. Acoustic chambers were designed to carry sound in ways that made the underground spaces feel open and alive. It was a perfect fusion of human pragmatism and Astrian artistry. The first real test came when the anomaly reached the test site. Surface structures began to fail as expected, but deep below, in the newly constructed chambers, life continued uninterrupted. The hybrid systems performed exactly as designed, maintaining a safe, stable environment even as the world above was plunged into darkness. News of the success spread rapidly through Astrian space. Worlds that had been facing evacuation now had another option. The underground habitats weren't just emergency shelters. They were becoming true communities, places where people could live and work until the anomaly passed. Your people have given us more than survival, Lysandra told Sarah during a tour of the completed facility. You've shown us how to adapt, how to find strength in working with our environment, rather than trying to control it completely. Maya, covered in rock dust after a long shift supervising excavation, smiled at the ambassador's words. That's what mining teaches you. The mountain always wins in the end. The trick is learning to work with it, not against it. The project expanded rapidly. Teams of human mining experts were dispatched to Astrian worlds, working with local engineers to establish underground sanctuaries. Each site learned from the ones before, improving and adapting the designs based on local conditions and needs. Perhaps most surprisingly, some Astraea began to find beauty in these underground spaces that they had never expected. The play of crystal-enhanced light through natural rock formations created effects that no surface structure could match. The sense of community that developed in these shared spaces was reminiscent of their civilization's earliest days. "We've spent millennia reaching for the stars," an Austrian artist told Maya as they watched crystals being installed in a new chamber. "Perhaps it took this crisis to remind us that there is wonder beneath our feet as well." As more underground habitats were completed, a new pattern of life began to emerge. The Astraea learned to move between surface and subterranean spaces as needed, treating their underground cities not as mere shelters, but as extensions of their civilization. It wasn't the solution anyone had expected, but it was working. 1 year after the first underground sanctuary was completed, Governor Sarah Chen stood in a chamber unlike anything she had ever seen. Crystal and stone merged seamlessly, creating a space that celebrated both Austrian aesthetics and human engineering. The Great Hall of New Harmony, as the Astraea had named it, was hosting a gathering that would have seemed impossible months ago. Representatives from dozens of worlds, both human and Austrian, had come to witness something unprecedented. The anomaly that had threatened to destroy Austrian civilization had begun to recede, but its impact would be permanent. Not in destruction, as originally feared, but in transformation. The crisis forced us to change. Ambassador Lysandra addressed the assembled crowd, her crystalline form reflecting the hybrid lighting that filled the chamber. But in doing so, we discovered strengths we never knew we had. The Austrian civilization had not merely survived, it had evolved. Their cities now extended both above and below ground, combining their traditional crystal spires with sophisticated underground complexes. Their technology had been refined, finding a balance between advanced capabilities and fundamental reliability. Maya Chen, now heading a joint human-Austrian engineering institute, smiled as she watched students from both species working together in one of the chamber's alcoves. They were developing new technologies that merged Austrian crystal engineering with human practical experience, creating solutions that were both sophisticated and resilient. "We thought we were teaching them to survive," she told her mother quietly. "But they were teaching us too. Look at what we've achieved together." She was right. The collaboration had transformed human engineering as well. New Providence's latest mining equipment incorporated modified crystal technology, making it more efficient while maintaining its legendary reliability. Human ships were being redesigned with Austrian principles, creating vessels that could operate effectively in any conditions. Marcus Reeves, his hair now streaked with more gray than when a crisis began, joined them at the observation window. Below, they could see one of the massive excavation machines that had helped create this sanctuary, its design a perfect fusion of human and Austrian engineering. "The anomaly is still out there," he noted, watching the machine work. "But we're ready for it now. More than ready." He was referring to the network of sensors they had established throughout known space, monitoring the anomaly's movement. But these weren't the sophisticated quantum devices the Astraea would have used before. Instead, they were hybrid systems, combining basic mechanical sensors with crystal enhancement, capable of functioning even within the affected zone. Ava Torres, who had become something of a legend among the Astraea for her role in modifying their rescue fleet, was now leading the joint research team studying the anomaly itself. Their approach was characteristically practical. They might not understand exactly what it was, but they had learned to live with it, adapt to it, and even use it to drive innovation. "Sometimes the greatest advances come from accepting our limitations," she had written in her latest report. The anomaly taught us that technology isn't about having the most advanced solution. It's about having the right solution. The ceremony that followed was both formal and deeply personal. The Austrian High Council, speaking from their new chambers deep beneath their capital world's surface, announced the establishment of a permanent partnership with humanity. Not as superior and inferior civilizations, but as equals who had discovered their complementary strengths. "We once viewed ourselves as mentors to younger species," the High Council leader admitted. "Now we understand that true wisdom comes from recognizing that every civilization, no matter its level of technological advancement, has something valuable to teach." Governor Chen, listening to the announcement, remembered the day the Astrian ships had first appeared above New Providence. They had come seeking help from what they considered a primitive mining colony. They had found instead a partnership that would reshape both their civilizations. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah walked through the crowds, watching humans and Astraea mingling freely, sharing ideas and plans for the future. In one corner, a group was discussing modifications to crystal technology for deep space mining. In another, engineers debated new designs for hybrid vessels that could operate in any conditions. The crisis had passed, but its legacy would endure. The Astraea had learned that sometimes the most sophisticated solution was not the best one. Humanity had gained access to advanced technology while maintaining their practical approach to problem solving. Together, they had created something entirely new, a civilization that valued both innovation and reliability, that could reach for the stars while keeping its feet firmly on the ground. "Ready to go home?" Marcus asked, approaching her with a tired smile. Sarah looked around the chamber one last time, at the perfect blend of crystal and stone, at the future being born in conversations between humans and Astraea, at the legacy they had all built together. "We are home," she replied. "All of us. And we're just getting started."